Welcome to this very first thing I'm ever doing, which is it's Monday, September 12th. And this week I am doing 10 cultural insights in 5 days. So today is the second insight. The way it works is every morning in my newsletter, there's one insight. And then in the afternoon, I go live at 2:30 every day. So I don't know how this will work. This is all a new piece, but I was really moved. It's the beginning of the school year. I want to do something that really helped people contribute to culture and see. So if you're interested in this, welcome. If those of you joining us live or catching the replay, and if you're interested in this and not missing any of the gems, you can sign up for my newsletter at the link on the screen, my website, bethnapleton.com. A pop-up will come on and give you the insight. So it's never too late because next week I'll send an email, or maybe later this week, that kind of has all 10 pieces of insight at once and like the big mother load. So that'll be really exciting. So this morning, it was the 6 words my therapist has shared with me that have changed my views on leadership forever. And tomorrow, spoiler alert, it will be about your favorite childhood game. So anyway, this isn't going to be long. It's going to be like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But I wanted to talk about culture, and I wanted to talk about it now. So I'm doing this week because every school that I know of is back in session. I literally talked to a woman today whose daughter's first day of kindergarten. Oh my gosh, of course my phone is ringing now. That just goes to show you how live it is. Anyway, I talked to him, and her first day of kindergarten was today. So I'm like, I think you were officially the last one. I knew people who went back August 1st, and we'll see from there. So anyway, it's a part of everything we do, and it either helps us or it hurts us. And so one of the things that it's never a non-issue. And so it's always there. And since we're at the beginning of the year, whether it's 1 month in, 1 day in, 1 weekend for many folks, and it's early, I like to focus on culture now because leader moves now can make a huge difference in how the rest of the year goes. And so there's like that old saying about a tree, right? That's like, when's the best time to plant a tree? It's like, well, it's either either 20 years ago or right now. And so it's always a good time to focus on culture, but especially now, moves leaders make early in the school year can have a huge impact on the rest of the year. So today we're going to focus on the question, how do I measure culture? So all the time I hear from leaders like, culture's like just so squishy, right? Like it's based on people's perception. How do you measure it? It's like, I know it's important, but it's not hard data like achievement results or attendance or compliance, right? And so it feels tough. It kind of feels like trying to I don't know, give a hug to a cloud. It just escapes through there. And so but it is possible to measure. We're going to talk about how in a second. And the reason we measure it is because it can change a lot. And it's very hard to be at one point in time and think, how was this 50 years ago? It's pretty easy. 50 years ago, 50 days ago, we'll start with 50 days. So it's pretty easy to do that with attendance data, right? And look at that, but it's just harder. So it really helps data-driven leaders. It's a way for us to get some metrics and a measurement. And it can really help with comparison. How is it compared to this time last year? How is it compared to a month ago or a week ago? And I have seen time and time again, and unfortunately, a lot of the examples coming to mind are missed opportunities or where culture was struggling, where people are like, well, that's always how it is this time of year. And you know what? It's just not that's not true. We had a school that I know very well had something like 7 resignations last fall. And I was like, oh, it always happens a little bit in the beginning of the year. This is not normal. And I know it's not normal. And if you were okay with measuring and using data to react to culture, it would actually allow you to get past this defensiveness and get into problem solving mode, which is really difficult. So how can leaders measure culture? So to quote my friend, the late, great Keith Burnham, perception is reality, right? So culture is often based on people's perception. However, their perception is their reality. And Keith really showed me this and helped me understand a great school leader. And so really, when we talk about measuring culture, you're really talking about getting people's perception, right? Because that perception is the reality. So we're going to talk about just 2 ways that I use to measure culture. One is surveys, and then another we'll get to in a second. So surveys, you can do these quarterly, monthly. I used to do them weekly. And you can make them so that they're the same every quarter, every week, however often you're giving them. So I used to have one every week when I opened a school that said, what are 3 things that went well this week? What are 3 things that go better? But here's the key. So you could just, every week, it was just send, save. And I was able to gather that data and use it. I wasn't readjusting or recreating every week. here's a thing that's super important. You need a question in there that is something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did this week go? And the reason is because it gives you a fixed point of a snapshot perception. And so, you will get a sense of who on your team, first of all, like both where people think they are and then where people's interpretations tend to be. So for example, I had a teacher who was always a 9, always a 10, always a 9, always a 10. So in one week she said an 8 and I was like, what's going on? I'm going to go check in with her. Even though for another one of my team members, an 8 would have been like, holy cow, like, did the president come to visit this week? Like, what an amazing week, because it was very hard to get this particular person moving above a 7. That was like the ultimate compliment for them. So, but the idea is you can start to just do some very quick data analysis, range, mean, median, and that starts to give you an idea of kind of where culture is and where it's moving. It allows you to kind of gauge, is it really feeling better or worse? Did this one thing happen that's coloring people's perception? And it's a starting point to work with. The other way to measure, and I'm going to keep this quick, we're going to get rolling soon, is the Net Promoter Score. So there's like a million ways to use this. And you can see that if people, you can Google Net Promoter and like businesses use it and like clean bathrooms use it and people all over use it. But what you're going to really do is think about using it for culture. And though we used to use it I used it in 2 ways that I really like it. One was for family engagement and the other was for culture. And it can be a question like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend working here to a valued colleague or friend? Important because it's valued colleague or friend. You typically only do this maybe twice a year. So it's a really good way to kind of measure like growth from fall to spring, spring to spring, fall to fall. And I love it because it's one question, it captures the essence. And basically then you ask people, why did you say that number? And what you do to calculate then your total score. And I like this. And a lot of leaders who are very data driven, I know, have really adapted this and like this. You take your total numbers of 9s and 10s, you subtract out let me back up. You take 3 numbers, you count the number of 9s and 10s, right? How many people said that? The number of 7s and 8s, and the number of 6 and below. Then what you do is you take your 9s and 10s number. So let's say 10 people said 9 or 10. You subtract out your 6 and below. And so let's say 5 people said that. So you have 10 minus 5, you're left with 5. 5 is your net promoter. And the way the numbers work, it can basically range from like negative, or maybe it's percentage. It's either number or percentage, but do it whatever way you want. But I used it in that way. And so what's nice is because it can either be a negative number or a positive number, and you can see growth over time. And you start to also get it like when it gets right down to it, like, would I want someone I really respect to work here? Would I kind of have skin in the game in that way? It helps you to get at this sense. So, this is, we're not going to get a lot into like, well, who would do this or how, or who analyzes it and who on your leadership team thinks about this and how do you respond to people so that they know you were listening? Like, you're not going to do any of that stuff right now. We just don't have time. It's a very quick live. But I did want to share this. You can Google this if you're interested, or talk to people like, hey, do you use a net promoter? And they might be able to figure it out. But part of why I'm doing this, and part of what kind of inspired me to do this week, is I was working on the unit plan for my learning lab. And so the website that I just put up at my website, bethnapleton.com/learning-lab. We actually get into this in the first session, which is going to be at the end of September. And we talk about the pros and cons of various progress-oriented strategies. We have sample tools that you can kind of copy, paste, use an exemplar. So we do some analysis. We look at some templates for sharing this data with staff. How do you report this out? How do you not have it take a lot of time? How do you kind of help synthesize the information? What do you do if I've got all these responses, and is it a trend? Is it not a trend? So we really kind of walk through how to think about measuring it, and also what's right for you, right? There's like a different prescription for a school that is in like a cultural bloodbath situation as to one that it's going good to great, or for one that they want to improve on this, or for one that's like really working on building new. So we always have work time built into Learning Lab. So it's not like homework or something to do or an academic exercise. We do some case studies. We go into breakout rooms. People are working. And, I have people who literally, by the time the session are over, the survey is in people's inboxes, or they know how to do it, or they have a plan to bring it to their next leadership team meeting, or whatever the most appropriate venue might be as well. And so if you don't know about Learning Lab, it is an intimate PD course I'm offering that is 2 hours every week for 4 weeks. So it's 8 hours total, which I know can sound like a lot, but the feedback I got from the summer was that people wanted more time. So I guess it flies by. And the one for the fall is specifically titled When the Bloom is Off the Rose, Leading Through Culture Challenge. Sorry, it's the world's longest title. when the bloom is off the rose, leading through challenge cultural breaches, fatigue, and burnout to get you and your people back to a better place. And I specifically am only offering this. I don't know if I'll do it again. I'm doing it this year, but I'm only offering it this time of year in the fall because it's September now. Everyone's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I have like open house at my kids' school tonight. But in October, experienced leaders know, I was just talking to a principal on the football sidelines on Saturday, that you need to get the Kleenex ready, right? Someone's crying, something's happening. And I think given the talent market of the last few years, we've seen more people not necessarily stick it out through a tough fall to get to Thanksgiving and the holidays. We've seen people resign. We see the ripple effect that has. We see morale go down. We see just lots of shenanigans. And so I am timing this to help leaders have the moves they need so that they can make these moves in the fall to kind of get through that October slump, get to a better year, and make sure it doesn't have the impact of that, right? We want kids in school learning and happy and engaged. And that's really important. So we meet on Zoom. All of our sessions are recorded, but this is definitely not just like watch a video. I mean, 8 hours of me talking about culture, I would not, I don't know about that. It's no Kardashians. I'll put it that way. But I'm a teacher, right? So it feels like a classroom. There is a pre-work survey, and those examples are ripped from the headlines to go into your work. There's a hot seat every week where people can say, I want to talk about this problem. Can we do some live coaching and problem solving on it? I take the examples from folks' surveys and use them as I go through. We look at surveys. There's a Slack channel. People submit work to me. I review it. I comment personally on this. I'm like your own coach. I have virtual support for folks for literally the 4 weeks of the program. So I review all the products. And I do this because I do some private executive coaching, but it's out of reach financially for a lot of places. And this is much more affordable. It builds community. It is just fun for me as a former teacher. Even as a Zoom teacher, it's fun. And it's an investment of only $695. So if groups from an organization want to participate at the same time, I do have discounts for 4 or more. You can reach out to me through my website as well. And all you have to do to enroll your spot is you can go to this link below. And there's one other one I'll put up now that has a little more information. You can pay now or pay later, but I am closing enrollment on Friday at midnight, the 16th. And so if you want to do this, this is the only time I know that I'll be offering it. I think I could do it in the future, but I'm like, as you can see by the many notes behind me, I'm in like startup business mode here, and I'm not really sure what will work. So I think it's a great opportunity. I'm very excited for both the Learning Lab, but also for this Culture Week ahead, because it's only Monday. So we have 2 insights down and we have 8 to go. And the next insight will come out tomorrow morning. It will be in my newsletter. And so if you don't get my newsletter already, you can go to my website, bethnapleton.com, and sign up. There's like a little yellow bar across the bottom. Just sign up and you'll get on that list and you'll see. And I will give you, my live watchers, 2 previews. One is that tomorrow's tip there's one with your childhood game. And then tomorrow I'll be back on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube talking live about how many people it takes to shift culture. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to talk to you then. And thanks for joining me for the first day of this very special, I have no good name for it, Week O Culture, 10 cultural insights in 5 days. I don't know. I'll work on coming up with something between now and then. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.